everybody, I'm Corinne Blackstone and welcome to my craft room. I'm so happy to have you here today. In today's video, we are going to be making a larger than matte HTV project. I had so many of you ask me to do this and I am so happy to show you how easy this really can be. So we're going to be making a really large banner, but you can make any kind of thing that you want. I just chose to do a banner for my other business, which is where I do crochet, and I'll hold it up for you best I can. But this is 2 feet tall by 6 feet wide, so it's a really, really big banner. And these designs are bigger than the mats can cut, so I'm going to show you how to use slice and sizing and all of those things to create your own larger than matte HTV design. Now you're going to want a few supplies for this. That's going to make things a lot easier for you. Number one I recommend is some heat tape. This is going to help hold your HTV design down to your blank a lot easier than the carrier sheets. And I also recommend a paper cutter. I'll link these down below so that you can find them. But this is going to help you keep a nice straight line on your HTV. And then you want to use a heat press, or you can use an easy press. And I'll link this one down below. This is one I've had for a long time and I really like it. It works really well. Now keep in mind, you can do this with any of your Cricut machines. So it's super fun, super simple. Before we get started, be sure that you're subscribed here. That way you don't miss out on any of the new DIY content I have coming. There's a lot of really fun stuff on the horizon that I don't want you to miss out on. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be making this extra large banner. So I am starting with my logo. This is for my crochet business. This cute little penguin is my logo. So you can use any image that you want, but I just wanted to show you with this one. And this is an ungrouped SVG, so he's several layers. But one thing that I did do that helped a lot as far as like layering, because my banner is white, I'm going to slice the white away from the black. So I have everything lined up where it should be so that I can make sure I slice this correctly. So what I want to do is I'm going to find where it says logo penguin white, and I'm going to find logo penguin black and select both of those items. And I'm going to slice that out because I don't need to have that white layer because I'm already going to have a white banner. So to save myself both vinyl and my sanity, it just makes more sense to get rid of that. Now the yellow for some reason fell behind everything, so I'm going to put that back at the top, and you can see it looks exactly the same, but now instead of having all of this area that would have to be another layer of HTV, we don't have to do that. And if you want to see kind of what that looks like, I'll just change the background color really quickly so you can kind of see that shows like what the banner color would be through it, but since our banner's white, this is perfect. Now I'm going to add some text in, and then we'll put in our banner template and get everything sized. So I'm going to be using my business name, which for my crochet is just Corinne's Cuddles. I wasn't anything crazy. So I'm just going to change it to Corinne's, and then Cuddles will be the second line. And I'm going to change the font. This one is not it. My font that I use for that logo is called Blueberry. So I'm going to look up Blueberry. And that font is right here. Now I'll link that font down below. It's such a cute font. It's really fun, really playful. And that's what I wanted because my plushies are just more just fun designs. So for this, what I want to do now is I'm going to make a template for our sign for the banner. To do that, I'm going to open up a shape and I'm going to use a square. You can use a rectangle too, but I'll just start with a square. Now, what I know about my banner is I know that it is 2 feet by 6 feet. So that's 24 inches high, and then it's 72 inches wide. So I'm going to make this that size. What I want to do is unlock this. I'm going to put 72 inches for its width and 24 inches for its height. Now, obviously, this is not fitting on our entire screen because it's huge. So I'm going to use the zoom out option, and I'm going to zoom out until I can see the entire banner. Now that I can see that, I'm going to change its color just so that we can kind of work with it a little bit better. It doesn't matter what color you make it. Just make it something that's easy for you to see. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to send it to the back. That way it's behind all of my design. And the next thing I'm going to do is grab all my penguin pieces, and I'm going to use this option, which is group. What group does is it allows us to move the entire design on our mat or on our canvas here without it moving like one piece at a time. Now when I grab it anywhere, it'll move the entire design. So the first thing I'm going to do is size my penguin, and I want him to be pretty much as big as possible. I want my logo to really take up a lot of that banner space because he stands out and he's just really super cute. The next thing I'm going to do is take the words Corinne's Cuddles, and I'm going to put them over here into the banner and make them as big as I can. Now, there is quite a bit of space between the lines, and I can definitely adjust that in a couple of ways. So the way that I'm going to do it, because I think I'm going to make the Corinne's a little bit bigger maybe, is I'm going to go to Advanced, and I'm going to ungroup this to lines. Now what I can do is move each line independently. So I'm able to kind of move this line and make it a little bit bigger so it takes up quite a bit of our sign. And then I can kind of adjust the size of the word Cuddles, and it may not be the exact same size, but it'll fit pretty well onto our mat here. I think that looks pretty good. I like the design. I like the layout. Now again, you do this however you want. If you want to put the penguin on the other side, or you want to use just the penguin, whatever you want to do, however your design is going to look, but this is just how you would design it. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to show you this. Do you notice all these little red lines? These are because these designs are too big to fit on our mats. So the one thing I want to check is I want to see that this right here, each word, is less than 11.5 inches high. Because if it is more than 11.5 inches high, we're going to have to cut it in a really weird way, and I don't want to do that. But they both fit just fine at under 11 inches, so they'll be fine on our mat. Now we're going to be using a 12 by 24 mat for this. So we can use slice, we can use ungroup, we can use all these different things in order to create our design to fit on our banner. Let's start with the words first. So right here, I'm going to take the word Corinne's, and I'm going to go ahead and go to Advanced, and I'm going to ungroup this to letters. By doing that, I'm going to be able to select each letter on its own, and I can hold Shift and then select the letter next to it. And what I want to do is make sure that this width does not become longer than 24 inches. So once I grab the CORI, I'm at 19.5, and I'm pretty sure that if I grab the N, it's going to be way too long. So in order to just do this, I'm going to have the CORI is going to be one set of our letters. So then all I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down to Combine, and I'm going to weld those. Then I'm going to grab the N, the E, and see kind of I'm at like 17.7. I think that if I grab the next two parts, it's going to be a little bit too big. But let's find out. So grabbing this little apostrophe can be a little pain. So I'm going to grab that first. And then I'm just going to grab all of these and just see if we can squeak it under. We can't. So that's kind of frustrating. So let me just tell you one thing I'm going to do. The S is a little bit far away anyways for me, so I'm going to go ahead and scoot that much closer, and I'm going to use the apostrophe and just scooch that over a little bit more, and we might be able to squeak that under that 24 inches. Now again, I need to grab the apostrophe first just because it's a pain, but we might be able to squeak this in. Look at that. As moving that over, I was able to save myself quite a bit of space. So again, I'm going to go to Combine, and I'm going to weld those. Now I want to do the same thing with the word Cuddles. I'm going to Advanced, ungroup it to letters, and grab as many letters as I can fit into a 24-inch area. I don't think I'm going to be able to get that other D. It's way too big. That's okay. So we'll just have CUD for one section, and that's going to be about 19 inches. I'm going to go ahead and weld that. Then I should be able to fit all of this into the same like under 24-inch area. So I'm going to combine that and weld it. Now you'll notice that each of my things over here no longer shows the red mark because those are all able to fit into the space that we have to work with. Now I am going to take my penguin, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to ungroup this layer because I'm going to need to do some slicing. We have two sections that are too large to fit. That's okay. We can easily work with this, and we're going to do this in 2 separate ways. So to make life easier, all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hide the 2 sections that will fit just for now, just so that we can work with the other 2 sections. The first section I'm going to work with is our yellow section, and I'm going to tell you a secret. We don't need to have them laid out like this because it's such a vinyl waster. That is 18 inches of vinyl. It's huge. So what we can do, because these are all separate pieces, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this twice so that I have 3 versions. You can see that I have the version on the penguin and then 2 extras. I'm going to go to this one and I'm going to go down to contour, and I'm going to hide both of the feet. That way all I have left is the beak. Now sometimes it doesn't always want to like hide what you want it to, because sometimes you can't click on it really easy. But now you can see all I have left is the beak. So I'm going to put the beak up here really quick. Then for this one, I'm going to go ahead and contour, and I'm going to contour out the beak and the little foot on this side. And I'm going to leave this foot. Now I want to select the one that's on the penguin. I'm going to contour out, and I'm going to contour out the beak and this foot that we already left on the other one. Now we have 3 separate pieces, but they're going to take up so much less vinyl. So now you can see we've still got our little feeties, but they're all going to be separate pieces. So it's just going to be a lot easier to line those up by themselves because they don't have to be held together. We can actually do that same thing with these pink cheeks if we don't want to waste the vinyl, because the pink cheeks are going to be a little bit big. They're going to take up about 9 inches wide of vinyl, and we don't need them to do that. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I want to duplicate them, and then I'm going to contour out one cheek on one of them, which we'll just do this one, and then I'll contour out the other cheek on the other one, and that way we're just going to waste a little bit less vinyl with those as well. I'm all about saving yourself some vinyl. Now, the scarf will fit absolutely fine as is. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and hide all of the pieces of our penguin to get them out of the way. And I'm also going to hide our square. That square is just our template for our banner, so we're just going to hide that. We don't need it. Now, we've got this big penguin, and he's pretty large. He's 24 inches wide and 23.348 inches high. So he's a big boy. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to open up a shape. I'm going to use a square, and I'm going to make this square the size of what we can print on our mat. So we can go 11.5 inches wide, and we can do 23.5 inches high. That's how big you can like cut on your mat. So now what you need to figure out is, do you want to do him sideways like this, or do you want to do him this direction? Whoops, and that's not even straight. But we want to make this straight, and do we want to cut him this way? Now this way isn't quite going to work because his little wings are a little bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this so that it's back to its normal state, which it's not quite. Turn it back to its normal state. Now I'm going to get this lined up as close as I can to the side. So what I can do is I'm going to grab my penguin and my little mat here, which I can see is still not quite as straight as I would like it. I'm going to take it right up here. Okay, there we go. I'm going to grab the penguin and the square. I'm going to use the align tool, and what I want to do is I'm going to align it right so that his flipper is right against that edge. And then I'm also going to align it, and I'm going to align it top. And that way I'm making sure that I'm fitting as much of him in here as I can. Then all I'm going to do is select the penguin and that square, and I'm going to slice it. That's going to give us 2 halves of our penguin. So I've got this half and that half. Now I'm going to get rid of the gray pieces, and I'm going to check my sizing. That will fit, I think, okay. Nope, not quite. All right, so he's still a little bit too big. Let's go ahead and we're going to undo what we just did, because sometimes you have to like play with it, because sometimes it's just a little nuts. Like if you look at this, for some reason it changed the sizing. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock this again and change this back to 11.5 by 23.5. I don't know why it did that, but that's okay. We can fix it. No big deal. I'm going to select both items. Again, I'm going to align, and I'm going to align right, and then I'm going to align top. Then we can go ahead and slice it again and just see if that piece will fit into our design section. You can easily tell because now it is perfectly fitted. It will fit just fine right here. Now this one is again too big. He's 23 or he's 13.5. He's a little bit too wide. So we have to decide now, do we want to just resize the whole penguin, which we could do, make him a little bit smaller so we could slice him in half and just have to do that, or do we want to piece him in a couple pieces? Now personally, I don't want to piece him in more than 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to undo all of this so that we have no slicing. I'm going to bring back all of his pieces so that I can see everything, including his scarf. And I want to size him back down just a little bit. So I may need to kind of line a few things up just so that we can get everything like in line. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want to get them lined up a little bit better just so they're not hanging off the side. And that way we can kind of see a little bit better. All right, I think that's good. So like I said, I'm going to size him down a little bit because he's a little too big and I don't want to have to slice him more than once. So I'm just going to size him down a smidgen. And what I'm doing is kind of looking here and looking at that width, because that width is what's going to kind of mess with us. So at the point that we can do 11.5 wide, he needs to be 23 inches wide. So no big deal. We can just make him a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to make him 23 inches wide. And I think that should be fine. He's going to be a little bit smaller, but I think it'll be okay. Now, yeah, I could make the words bigger, but I'm not going to. I'll just put him a little bit further in. You really have to just play with it and figure out what's going to work best for you. So now, again, I'm going to go through and hide all these pieces. I'm going to show you every step of this because I don't want you guys to like fumble through your own. But I'm going to give you some options. So now what we'll do, we'll open up those shapes again, get that square back, and I'm going to, again, change that square to 11.5 wide, and we're going to go 23.5 high, relock that, and then we're going to do that same thing where we're going to line it up. So I'm going to grab the square and the penguin, align it. I want to align top, and then I want to align left or right. It doesn't matter either way. And then you can slice it back out. And then now when we slice him, both sides should fit. You see how we don't have any more red? All our red is gone. That's exactly what I wanted. So now it'll fit fine onto our mat with our 2 pieces of our penguin. So I think that will work really, really well. I think that's good to go. Now I'm going to unhide all of our design here. And I personally like to make my 2 words 2 different colors. That's just the way it looks best on my logo, but you do you. You have fun with your logo. And I also use a different color for the scarf. I don't use red. Red is not one of my like logo colors. So I'm just going to change the colors to be kind of sort of what I want them to be. I think I'm going to do like a blue on the top, and then I do a purple or a green on the bottom, and then the scarf I usually make it like a purple color. So you kind of play with your own colors, but I'm just going to do this so that we can kind of get a better idea. So now that we've got this all like laid out, we kind of know what colors we're going to be using. We need to know how much HTV this is going to take because this is going to be pretty big. So what I'm going to do is click make, and I do want to save my project. So I'm going to save it here as large HTV banner and save it. I always recommend saving those projects before you hit make, because if something happens, you have to do all that work we just did again. Now, this one is asking me how I'm going to load this, and I want to do on the mat for any material, and I'm going to be using my 12 by 24 selection, and I'm just going to tell it to remember that. Go ahead and click confirm, and what it's going to do is it's going to show you how many mats this is going to take, which will tell you how much HTV you're going to need. So we're going to be using black, which you can see here we need 22 inches here and another 22 inches there. So I usually just round that up to like 23 just to give me a little more, leeway of if I mess something up. So we know what we're going to need. We're going to need, just call it 48 inches of black. So I always write that down. So I need 48 inches of black. And then I go back down and I keep looking. So pink, we just need a small amount of pink, but I always kind of write it down just so I know what I need. So I need small amount of pink. I need small amount of yellow. And then now we're getting into the words. We're going to need 24-ish, well, so like I said, about 22 inches of these green for one. And then this one we only need a little over, well, about 20 inches. So technically you need about 42 inches. And that's going to be for the green color. And then for the blue color, we're going to need, let's see, I'll call 24 on that one and about 20. So we're going to need about 44 inches of the blue. And then we have our purple color, which we only need around 20 inches of purple. Now, the reason I do this is because if you're using vinyl from your stock, this will help you know if you have enough. But also, if you need to go order some HTV to make this, you can also easily know if you're going to order enough to make it. So I always recommend double checking how much HTV or vinyl, depending on what you're making this with, that you're going to need to use. Now we're basically ready to cut. This is all going to cut on the everyday iron-on setting. Now we're ready to click make it. So go ahead and click continue, and it's going to connect to your Cricut machine, whichever one you're using. Now do keep in mind, this is going to be too big for the Joy or the Joy Extra. So this is like the Maker family, the Explore family. I'm going to select the machine that I'm using, and then I'm going to show you what Cricut now does in case you haven't seen it yet. When I select certain materials, glitter iron-on, everyday iron-on, infusible ink sheets, Cricut will automatically mirror our mats. So if I click everyday iron-on, right now you'll see that it says mirror on. Design Space automatically turns mirror on for iron-on and infusible ink. Now if you look, each of your mats is now mirrored. So that's just something to keep in mind that Cricut now does. I always just make sure every single mat is mirrored. I do not trust Design Space one darn bit. But one thing I want you to also make sure that you do is right here where it says remember material settings, go ahead and select that before you get started. That way you make sure that all your materials are going to cut on that same one. You're not going to have to go back to your device and constantly select it and make sure that everything mirrors. Now we're going to go ahead and cut this on the everyday iron-on setting. I'll show you how I load the mat with a little trick that I like to use because I find it works really, really well. We're going to start with black, and I have 5-foot rolls of the longer colors, and then I just have 12 by 12 sheets of the less colors, which will work just fine. I'm using my 12 by 24 mat, but what I want to do is I take my roll and I just place my roll inside my machine. If it falls sideways, totally fine. Don't worry about it. But this is going to help us put this on the mat a little easier. So what I do is I just line up the mat, and I just get it right about as even as I can, which that was not. And it might take you a try or two just to get this straight across the top as you want it. And then all I do is I take my hand, and you'll see that as I pull, it's rolling out of the machine. And we want it to do that so that we can put it on this 12 by 24 mat without too much of a hassle. Once I get down to the end, I just take the roll that's left over down here at the end, and I have these little clips. They're just like cheapo, like craft clips, and you can use really chip clips. Any kind of clip will work. And I just clip the roll so that it stays like rolled up. And you can kind of clip it, you know, close to the bottom of your mat if you want to. You can let it hang off a little bit more, but I just clip it on both sides, and that just keeps it from ending up on the floor. Now I'm cutting this on the everyday iron-on setting. That's what works. And again, I've put the carrier sheet side down. This is your vinyl side. We're going to cut this. It's going to cut one side of our penguin, and then I'll take this off, trim it off so it's straight, and then we'll cut the other side of the penguin next. Quick trick I want to share with you is if you've cut your roll off one side and it's not perfectly straight, because sometimes it's not, I will actually just use the other side that like the professional machine cut when they cut the rolls out, and that's how I will lay my vinyl down for the next cut of our black. So that's just a quick little tip trick for you. And again, just get that as straight as you can at the top, and then pull your mat out. And now there's not much hanging off, so I won't use the clip trick on this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get everything else cut out. I'm not gonna make you like, you know, sit through it in real time. I will speed it way up, and then we'll get everything weeded. got my banner. This is from Amazon. I'll link it down below. This is 100% polyester, so it'll work really well with our HTV, which again is StarCraft. I've got my heat press getting ready. So first thing I'm gonna do is lay out my banner. Now I know it is wrinkled from being in the bag. I'm not worried about that. I've done one of these before and I just did it while it was wrinkled instead of pre-packed pressing it, and it was absolutely fine. But this is super slippery. Like you can see if I let go of it, it's gonna slide off. So I'm gonna use my heat tape dispenser to hold this on. The first thing that we'll need to do is figure out which side is the front, which you can pretty much figure out by looking at the rivets, and I've got it backwards, so I'm gonna flip it so I can access the correct side. And you just wanna make sure you pay attention to that. One side of the rivet looks a little bit messier than the other. Nobody's gonna notice it, but I do, so I wanna make sure I have it the right way. So I'm gonna flip this out, weigh it down, and then we're gonna get our HTV, which I just stacked all together. And the first part we're gonna do is our 1/2 of our penguin. So I'm gonna peel him off the other penguin. And this is the one that for whatever reason, even though I had it set to the same cut setting as everything else, cut too deep, and I don't know why. But it's fine because I can just place it. I'm not really super concerned. It'll sit just like regular HTV, even though it cut a little bit through. So now all I have to do is figure out where I want my penguin to sit. And this part's really just up to you as to like your design and where you want everything sitting for your design. So once I'm kind of happy with where I've got him, because I have kind of a big piece here, I just want to make sure that I'm happy with how straight he is. And you'll see that this thing constantly wants to fly off your table. If you have the option, use a larger table. I don't have that option down here, and I don't really want to put it on the floor because then it's hard to film. So I'm trying to make this so I can film it for you. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to kind of see how straight I can get him. I don't think that's particularly straight either. He looks a little wonky at the top. So I just kind of adjust, and this part is going to take you a hot minute, especially for your first piece of your design. It may take you a minute to get it exactly where you want it, and you can always bring your second half of your design in to just see if it looks straight or not, but you don't have to do that because you're going to have to press these into separate parts. I'm just going to grab him just so I can see if it looks pretty straight to me, because this guy is going to sit a little awkward if it's not straight. Not that it matters because he's kind of like dancing almost in his little scarf, so I think it'll be okay if he's not completely straight, but it can really help you to just kind of match it up and just figure out kind of the whole body of the penguin to see if he looks like how you want him to. I actually think that's not too bad. I don't think that's out of the question for how straight he is. So what I'll do now, I'm going to take this second half that we placed down, and I'm just going to take this off because, like I said, we have to press this in two separate parts because you don't want any of the carrier sheet to be under where you're pressing. Now, this is where the heat tape comes in. So now you want to grab some heat tape because this doesn't stick real well. The polyester doesn't stick amazing to my HTV carrier sheet. And because I have to move the banner, since I want to set it up onto my table, I'm going to just use a few pieces of heat tape just to make sure that I'm happy with where he's sitting. He's not going to shift at all. So I'm just going to put some heat tape on. Now what's great about this is this tape is made to be heated, hence it's heat tape. And it's not going to leave any like residue on your flag. It won't ruin your HTV or anything like that. Now I have my press heated to 285 degrees, and that is going to give us a excellent press. I'm only going to press him for just a couple of seconds, which you'll see, and then I'm going to press his other section because he's too big to fit on my press all at once. And I'm going to show you how I do that over at our heat press. I'm ready to place the banner onto the mat, so I just folded it up a little bit so that when I brought it over, the banner wasn't dragging on the ground. Now I'm not using a pressing pillow for this because I want to take advantage of as much of my pressing surface as possible. So I just turned my pressure up quite a bit, and then I'm just going to make sure that he's sitting where I want him to be. Just another quick double check of that. I think he looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and press this section. And I'm gonna hold on to this kind of down towards the bottom, making sure my fingers are not near the plate. Press this down, and I'm only gonna press this for a few seconds. You don't need to do a full press. Sometimes if you full press, it will end up getting a, like shrinking too much. So now I need to press the booty section. So I'm just gonna turn my design, and then I'm just going to, again, press for just a couple of seconds. Now this is a warm peel product, so you're gonna be able to peel this right away. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that pressed. And then all I'm gonna do is just peel off the carrier sheet from the design, and it should all be stuck down absolutely beautifully. Now we're gonna go ahead and line up our second piece of the penguin. We're ready to press the second half of our penguin. So same thing, I just folded my banner up, and then I want to make sure to slide it over so that as much of the new penguin piece is on our mat here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and press. Now I'm using like a medium-ish pressure. I could turn it up a little bit more if I want to, but I think the medium for now is pretty good. So I'll go ahead and pop that up, and then I just need to do the same thing where I'm going to turn this. Now for this one, I'm just going to turn it all the way around and hope that his little booty doesn't fall off. And then I'm just going to make sure that I get him under the press, and it doesn't have to be like straight or anything, it just needs to be. And then I'm just going to make sure that all that's under there, and then I'm going to go ahead and again press him. Now again, not pressing for the full press, although this one I'm going to probably do a little bit longer just because I want to make sure he's really well stuck. Go ahead and pull that up, and then you can go ahead and remove all of your tape from your design, or your carrier sheet I should say. And you just want to be a little gentler at the top because that's going to have cooled down just a little bit. So it may be a little more difficult to remove, but it's fine. You can still remove this cool as well. And then I'm just going to go ahead and peel this off. And then we'll go back over to the table. Like I said, the rest of this I'm going to do in a really quick succession. I did want to show you two options. So we did the penguin with our heat press, but then we'll do the words with a easy press. This is the HTV RONT version, basically the same as a Cricut easy press. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on, and then I can set my time and my temperature. I can just hit this little temperature button, and that's how you set your temperature. And for this, it is 285, and then you can set your time, and my time is 15 seconds, and I want it to go down a little bit, so I want to go down to like 10 seconds. Then just hit the time button again, and then this is going to heat up, and then I'll get the beginnings of our letters set out so that we can get ready to press them. Here is all of our letters. I know they look gigantic. I'm going to trim them down quite a bit because I'm hoping I can at least get everything for the first section laid out, and then we can look at the second part. But because I want to make sure everything's spaced out correctly, I'm just going to kind of pull my entire banner in, and I'll get you guys a little bit wider view. All right, now you can see most of the banner. Like I said, this is huge, so it is something that's going to take up a lot of space. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off of the other ones. Everyone always asks about how to store HTV after you've weeded it. You can just stack it on top of each other, just like this. It's not going to damage anything. So I'm not concerned about the bottom section or the top section of this. I'm concerned about the bottom. Now there isn't too much transfer tape, but I am just going to go around and just trim it a little closer to the bottom, just so I don't have any accidents happen. And this is obviously the beginning part of our name, so I'm going to set that over there. And then I'm going to get the second part of the name off of the rest of the HTV here. Now for this one, I'm also going to trim off the lower section under the letters, but I'm also going to be trimming off this right next to the N. I want this really close so that I can line it up right next to that I, and hopefully not worry about any overlap of the carrier sheet. But you can also come back through and go over your I too and get that transfer tape really close. That way it doesn't interfere with our press, because we can probably lay out at least one of the words together, and that way we don't have to fight with that at all. It's just one of those things that you have to look for when you're doing HTV projects. Is any carrier sheet going to overlap any other? Because if it does, it will press to the carrier sheet and not to your project. So now all I want to do is I'm going to line these up. And I'm using this as the center line. That's partially why I don't like to press the lines out. There's no need to when I'm doing this. So I just want to kind of use that as my center line. And then I'm just going to get everything lined up best I can. Now I am going to grab some heat tape again, just to hold these down so that when I'm pressing them, they don't shift, they don't move. That's just personal preference. I don't want them to scooch around at all when I'm pressing. And using a little bit of heat tape is never a bad thing. And I'm gonna grab a pressing pillow from my craft stash here so that I have something between my press and my table. That way I don't damage anything. Also, to make it easier to press, I'm gonna flip this around so that this part is closer to me. That way I'm not having to lean all the way over my table in order to press that. Put my pressing mat under my design here, and I'm just going to end up being able to press just a couple of letters. I'm going to slide this over a little just so it stops trying to pull off the table. And then you're going to want some parchment paper or a Teflon sheet. I'm just going to use parchment paper to cover my design. That way I protect everything. And we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and place this down. Now, I'm going to grab my heat press, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it over my design, and then to start this you hit the little R button and that'll start your countdown, and this one actually tells you how much pressure you're putting on, but I don't need to use a ton, but I am using like a decent amount just so that I can make sure that everything presses really nicely. And then remember, this is warm peel, so I'm just going to make sure it's stuck. That looks really good. It looks like it's stuck pretty well. So because I'm only able to do part of this, I'm going to just peel this back a little bit. And then I'm going to trim off the carrier sheet just to make life easier, because when it gets cold, it's harder to peel this off. And then I'm just throwing that on the ground for now. My table's going to be too full. So then I'm going to slide this over, and we got part of the O, so I'm just going to slide it over a little bit. I want to make sure that my R is fully on there. And I'm going to cover everything, again, making sure to cover all the parts that it might touch. Place my press down, hit the little R button, that's our countdown, and then press down. So now you see me do this a couple times. I'm just going to go ahead and finish the rest of the banner using my easy press, and you do what works best for you. Our banner is all finished and hung up. Now I will say, if you're gonna put this on like a tent, you could put some Velcro along the top of the back and then some Velcro on your tent to help hold it really nice and evenly. But look how good this came out. It's so nice, so even. I love how easy this is to do. Even though it is a lot of work, it's easy work. Now, if you have any questions about this, please let me know in those comments down below, and I'll link all of the products that I used here so that you can make your own banner or whatever you want to make. I think this would be really fun if you got a big piece of fabric and you made like a really big character blanket. That could be fun. There's so many things that you can do with this, so let your imagination run wild and just have fun. Now, this cloth is 100% polyester, but you can really use any fabric that you want to create these. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, happy crafting.